Hello.
Hi.
Live from Da Nang, Vietnam.
Hi, everybody.
We're overmodulating like heck. Hi, everybody. I'm sorry to.
How is it possible? Didn't we fix it?
Just don't talk too loud. We're supposed to talk conversationally. That's how we set the mics up.
Okay,
so.
this is. I want to be calm. All right.
Welcome to BREADCAST. We are very fancy today. I feel
Yes.
actually very nervous. And we got our producer Grant talking in our mic, complaining because he's got lag going on.
Yeah.
But I don't care. It's not my concern.
How is the internet looks? You know, like in your end, the audio, the audience.
What was that question? I don't even know.
Because last time.
What was the question you just asked?
No, I'm asking if our internet
What did you say?
better.
You said, what is the internet audio audience?
How do I look like? How do we look like?
That's not what I thought you were asking.
How is our stream? How does our stream look like in your end to see if our internet is good or not?
This is dialectical development.
Check. You should hear us, right?
Everyone say, okay, very clear.
Yeah.
Audio's a little quiet, like a teeny tiny bit.
Oh, okay.
Why is our audio quiet? Let me see. I don't know. I can't do anything from here. So, I mean, what I could do is I can go boost it up to the plus 20 decibels if everyone thinks that's necessary. Does anyone else think it's quiet? Luna's putting her lipstick on now instead of 5 minutes ago. Everyone's doing great today.
Yes.
We're all doing so great. We're
so well
we're
prepared,
vibing.
you know.
All right. I guess we'll just keep the audio where it is for now. Why don't we bring in Slopstash? It's producer Slopdeucer Slopstash, and give a sound check to old Sloppy Stash. Hello.
Oh, hi. Good afternoon. How are y'all doing?
I'm doing so
evening.
great.
Yeah.
It's evening time.
It's evening time. Sometimes in some places it's the morning, like where I am.
That is true. That is true. This is good. This is good. This is good discussion.
Laptops?
You know.
I muted it. I just muted it. Oh, I unmuted. Wait.
You unmuted it.
Okay. We're doing a good job.
I see that you and I both really have a brand, don't we? Because of our costumes.
Attire. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Pretty nice.
we did used to sniff each other because we were both the vest guys at the same time at Preston Residential College.
I mean,
yeah.
Finally, after years, we have a cold enough room for EJ to wear a suit.
I'm burning up. I'm hot as hell.
Me too.
We did a table fan for you.
No, I just need the air conditioner to work. I turned it down to 24, but it hasn't.
You should turn that one on.
You know where the remote is?
I want to be freezing.
Do you know where the remote is?
I don't.
All right, we'll have to just suffer for a little while.
Exactly.
I might go turn it on.
You're gonna suffer, not me.
We all suffer under capitalism, and that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Yes.
How do you like that for a transition?
Wow.
Got rid of
pretty
Slop
smooth. Very smooth. Yes.
So today we're going to be talking a little bit about free speech, the illusion of free speech. We're going to be talking about a few other things, racism and technology. These things are all related, of course, dialectically. All right, Mr. Piece of Work is saying it's a bit low. So they're saying that our audio is a little bit low, Luna. So why don't you talk a little bit about what you have in mind? And I bet our Slopdeucer can switch to your camera while I go and bump our audio up.
Okay. Yes.
The keyboard shortcuts aren't working, Grant? There we go. All right, good. All right, I'll be right back while Luna tells us a story.
Story? Do you know that I am so bad You know, I am so bad at telling a story. That is...
Don't tell a story. Talk about something else.
I mean, dang it. Now it's so much pressure for me to tell a story.
Stream every week for 2 hours by yourself. Just talk about something.
Based on my main topic last week, Vietnam is just cracked down a huge. You can say it's like a historical case, corruption case in Vietnam, where like lots of the high-ranking members in the government and the Communist Party of Vietnam, such as like the minister, vice deputy minister of the Foreign Affairs Ministry, and a lot of ambassadors in many other countries got involved together. Out of focus. My camera is out of focus. And worked with a bunch of billionaires and rich CEOs in Vietnam to take people's money. Due to COVID-19, a lot of people, need to go back home, and they took that as a chance. They took the national disaster as a opportunity for them to take money into their pocket. And 54 of them just went to jail. Many of them got life sentence. Many of them just got like over 10 years as sentence, and it was like tens of billions of dollars got taken back from their pocket. So that was how horrible it is, and how, we are actually having a war against corruption in Vietnam.
Wow, that's great. And this would be a great time to cut to my camera. Hello.
You feel the pressure now?
But no, wait, it's actually I'm only on standby.
Oh,
no,
all right. There
our producer
we go.
just put me on there. Now it's my camera.
Now the pressure is on your shoulders.
Well, that's fine because I'm very prepared to speak.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes.
Are you?
Oh, yes. Creative Experiment said that we have professional manual focus because we're professionals and we know exactly what we're doing. So, I don't know. Where do you want to begin, Luna? Because I have a few things we could talk about. We could talk about the free speech thing, jump right into it, or we can wait, hold that off. That's the main topic. I think we should hold off on that a little bit. We could talk. Let's talk a little about racism and technology.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
It would be a great time for a graphics package if we had any graphics packages set up, but we don't.
Yeah.
So we're just going to jump straight to, let me see. I'm going to share my screen here. I got a few articles pulled up. Let's start with this one.
Racism and...
Can you put my screen up?
Yes.
Somebody?
You need to share it first. I don't see it on the list here. Oh, I got it. Ha, ha, ha.
All right. Via Insider.
Thank you.
Via Insider. In every reported case where police mistakenly arrested someone using facial recognition, that person has been black. Now, we've talked before about the problems with facial recognition and racism and the related issues to it. Now, if you're not familiar with this, basically, facial recognition technology has white supremacism baked into it. There were stories years ago when facial recognition first sort of started to come into the mainstream, and when phones and apps were using face recognition to verify identities on things like Facebook.
Yeah.
And one of
Face ID.
Yeah, and so Facebook, black users on Facebook and other apps were reporting that basically the technology was not recognizing their faces, and sometimes even on like cameras and that sort of thing, we're not even recognizing black folks and folks with darker skin, as faces at all. You know how when you use like the autofocus and it'll detect your face, that sort of thing. It was only working on white faces. This is like a long struggle that folks have been having with this technology. And then suddenly, I noticed during the uprising in 2020, facial recognition technology started to really get a ton of investment with the police. And cops started using it to try to identify people in the crowds during the uprising and that sort of thing. And so there's a long history to this. The history actually goes back before computers were even really a thing, all the way back to film. Because if you look at the history of like film stocks, even those had like white supremacism baked in because they were calibrated for quote unquote white people's skin, and there's all kinds of documentation if you go look in like the history of racism with Kodak and that sort of thing. Basically, technology can manifest racism. Racism can become manifested in technology.
Yeah.
And this is something that we've been struggling with for decades, centuries even. So that is kind of like the background behind this article.
Wait a minute, that's a Vietnamese congrats question, and I want to answer real quick before we jump into here.
Okay.
Sister Kenny Chingo asks, as a Vietnamese, I still don't really understand what racism means and how it feels like, you know. So I answer in Vietnamese real quick. Ra thì người Việt Nam mình, tại vì là mình may mắn là mình đã chiến thắng cái ở trên nhiều kháng chiến chống Mỹ và kháng chiến chống Pháp, cho nên là mình đã ngày xưa thì ông bà mình đã chịu cái phân biệt chủng tộc này, nhưng mà đến đời mình thì mình không phải chịu nữa, mình sống một cách tự do ở nước mình, nên mình sẽ không hiểu được cái ý nghĩa của cái này. Nhưng mà bây giờ mình sẽ giải thích với bạn như phải bằng tiếng Anh, tại vì là một số người nước ngoài luôn ấy, thì mình nói thẳng như này luôn.
This would be a good time to cut to. Okay. Be a good time to cut to Luna's camera.
Yeah, exactly. So this is true that a lot of a lot of Vietnamese, mainly Vietnamese, do not understand much about racism. It is because we were lucky that we won the war against both the colonialist French and the imperialist USA. That was why Vietnamese people living freely in our country and receiving no racism. That is why, generally speaking, Vietnamese do not face racism in our daily life, and most of us do not understand very deeply about what racism means. The long story short, I can answer my Vietnamese comrade, Kenny Chingo, is that racism, when we talk about it, is a systemic problem where the system is made to be racist. So, for example, a black person is 5 times higher chance to be, arrested and to be charged with crime in the same situation if a white person got arrested, something like that. So it's a systemic problem. We are not talking about personal attitude or anything. We're not talking about a systemic problem. That is the main issue about racism that we are talking about here.
Yeah, so like basically racism is I have a video on my channel actually it basically talks about how white supremacism and racism under capitalism are the exact same thing. It's all one system. But yeah, we're when we talk about racism on this show, there we go. All right, I was waiting for that.
I was too.
When we talk about racism on this show, we're talking about systemic racism.
Yeah, systemic racism. Này là có nghĩa là phân biệt chủng tộc một cách có hệ thống. Brand, back to my face. Thank you. Để mình nói về tiếng Việt cho nó rõ thì tức là cái phân biệt chủng tộc mà mình đang nói, tức là phân biệt chủng tộc một cách có hệ thống, tức là cái hệ thống chính trị và cái hệ thống pháp quyền nó xây dựng dựa trên phân biệt chủng tộc, và nó phân biệt những cái người không phải là người da trắng thì dễ bị bắt vào tù hoặc là khó khăn để học hành hay là xin việc hơn. Đấy là như thế. Done.
So basically we're not talking about individual moral failings. Grant, you got to get snappy with these camera cuts. Come on. I gave you keyboard shortcuts. ASD. All right. So when we talk about racism, we're not talking about individual moral failings, and we're not talking about bigotry.
Yeah.
We're talking about systemic racism. I have a whole video on it. If you want to see it on my channel, maybe Luna can go pull that up. The C word is not a slur.
Yeah.
Can you pull that up and put it in the chat?
Yes, I am now.
But basically, if you want to learn more about that, that would be probably a good video to start. Because I explained how white supremacism, racism, systemic racism under capitalism, and especially in my home country, the USA, they're all the same thing. Okay, let's dig into this article now. We can talk a little bit about the systemic issues of racism and how that leads to racism being built into technology. I mean, if racism was just a individual problem, right? If racism, because that's what a lot of right wingers, especially, but even some liberals, want you to think that racism is just this like individual bigotry, right? They want you to equate those two things. If that were the case, we wouldn't have problems like this where entire platforms, entire systems of technology have white supremacism baked into them. And we have 2 stories today that we're going to share that prove that, these technologies that we develop socially do manifest racism and white supremacism. So, according to this article, all 6 known reports of false arrests due to facial recognition technology were made by Black people. As activists have warned for several years, facial recognition technology and AI can exacerbate racial inequity in policing. And several police departments across the country use the technology, with Baltimore police running over 800 searches last year, one expert said. The federal funding for facial recognition programs has skyrocketed since 2020, since the uprisings. And this technology is not actually that good. It shouldn't be used to like throw people in prison, but it is because we have a racist justice system. So it says, for several years, civil liberty groups, tech experts, and activists have warned that the use of facial recognition technology will only increase racial inequalities in policing. As time goes on, it's becoming even more clear that these warnings were right. Portia Woodruff, a mother from Detroit, Michigan, became the first woman to report that police falsely identified her as a suspect using faulty facial recognition technology, the New York Times reported. She's now the sixth person to report a false accusation based on facial recognition technology, and every report that came before hers was filed by someone who was Black, according to the Times. I've reviewed the allegations contained in the lawsuit. They are very concerning. Of course, that's what they always say. The cops always say that. It's very concerning. We're very concerned. But they never actually do anything about it. We're taking this matter very seriously. In May, months after Woodruff's arrest last February, a research paper from criminal justice experts Thaddeus L. Johnson and Natasha N. Johnson demonstrated that facial recognition leads police departments to arrest Black people at disproportionately high rates. Just like, I mean, this is like par for the course, right? Because Black people have always been in the USA arrested at disproportionately high rates. There's a great, I wonder if you could find that Twitter thread, Luna. We should go through that. There's a Twitter thread that you retweeted at one point about the statistics about Black folks getting imprisoned more than white folks.
Yeah.
I wonder if you could find that. Okay, so I'll keep reading this article while you look for that. Months after Woodruff's arrest last February, a research paper from criminal justice expert, blah, 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 blah. Okay, I read that. We believe this results from factors that include the lack of Black faces in the algorithm's training data sets, okay? Data sets can have racism baked into them as well. They're mostly using white faces to train these data sets. And so that's leading to inaccuracies about the faces of Black folks. A belief that those programs are infallible is another problem, all right? Cops have this tendency to completely trust technologies like this, which are absolutely fallible, and a tendency of officers' own biases to magnify these issues, right? So if the cops are already racist and then they're using racist technologies, the issues compound. You know, there's a dialectical relationship between the racist policing system and the racist technologies and the wider atmosphere of white supremacism that we have in the United States. The research also demonstrated that Black people are overrepresented in databases of mugshots, and that skews AI. So think about it, okay? You've got data sets that are primarily used for training things like Facebook and your phone app and that sort of thing, and they have a lot more white faces in them and a lot fewer Black folks' faces. And then so there's that problem with that data set. And then you have a data set of like mugshots and quote unquote criminals, which that's a whole doctrinal language issue we could get into. But and then you're seeing disproportionately large number of Black folks in those faces. And then you throw it all into this mix and you have a racist system of oppression. That's like a recipe for racist technology. The research also demonstrated that, so Black folks are overrepresented in the mugshots. Consequently, see, this is one of the things about AI is like, they're just implementing it. They're just throwing it out there and using it for things like the criminal justice system. They're using this technology, which we know is flawed, which we know is unproven, which we know has not been developed very effectively at all, and which we know is racist. All of these things are known, well established, talked about every day. But they're already using this technology to imprison people. It's disgusting.
It is. Ugh.
So consequently, AI is more likely to mark Black faces as criminal, leading to the targeting and arresting of innocent Black people. Several police departments across the country use facial recognition technology to identify suspects in certain investigations. This should be illegal. Using these technologies at this point should be illegal.
Yeah.
Are you not able to find that thread? Because it's okay.
I am, but it's not logging in the right Chrome.
Well, you just need to find the link and share it in the private chat.
That.
No, that's not it. I'll find it. It's okay. You can. I'll find it later when you
Feel
talk.
like finding it.
Don't worry about it. Several police departments across the country use facial recognition technology to identify suspects in certain investigations. Once again, Wired reported that Deborah Levi, a Maryland public defender, said the Baltimore Police Department ran nearly 800 facial recognition searches in 2022. The Detroit Police Department makes about 125 facial recognition searches every year. The Baltimore Police Department did not respond to insiders' requests for comment ahead of publication. In 2020, Detroit's police chief said their facial recognition technology, when used alone, fails 96% of the time. Great job. This is an extremely dangerous practice that has led to multiple false arrests that we know of. Phil Mayer, a senior staff attorney at the American Civil Liberties Union in Michigan, told the Times. Mayer currently represents Robert Williams, another Detroit resident who filed a report of false arrests due to facial recognition technology in 2020. Shoddy technology makes shoddy investigations, and police assurances that they will conduct serious investigations do not ring true, Mayer told the Times. That's it. So, all right. So we have here like kind of a perfect storm of racist technology, systemic racism. Oh, this is an interesting. Okay. And the biases of the police. I mean, it's all dialectically interlinked, right? So this is the problem. This is exactly what we mean when Luna was talking earlier about how racism is not an individual moral failing. It doesn't mean personal prejudice or personal bigotry. That's what she was talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
These systems.
Lots of liberals, they try to, muddy the definition of racism. When we talk about racism, they all think about it's a personal, said terrible thing personally, but actually, no, it doesn't mean that at all. We don't care about that at all.
Hold on, I gotta go. You keep talking, Luna. I'm gonna switch to your camera. Exactly. I think Grant's having a problem.
Yeah, it's a storm here.
We're still learning this. I obviously need to have access to that computer from over here.
Exactly. So yeah, a lot of liberals, as I said, they either do not understand what we mean, or they intentionally want to muddy the definition. But when we talk about racism, we're talking about systemic problem, because to be honest, I personally don't give a shit with if that person is being racist. Of course, it's not good. But when we talk about racism, or what we mean when we say "and racism," we're talking about a systemic issue that we need systemic solution for it. That is why we need, some big change in real life, not just be nice to each other. Stop saying those words like, yeah, I mean, that's kind of okay, nice if you care about our feeling, but we're talking about a system here. It's a system that is built on racism that makes it way harder for non-white people, for us to be equal to white people. And that is what we want. And that is way bigger of an issue than, what liberals used to believe.
Well, liberals want you to think that everything is just an individual.
Yeah, just
problem.
Stop using plastic straw and the climate change will be gone or something. They should have a change to, the main camera.
I know. So I need to check in real quick with our producer, Grant. Do you hear us? I think we've lost our producer. So I should probably switch to the main camera, I guess, and we'll just go with that. Okay, hold on. I'll be right back.
All right. So the problem in Vietnam is very different than in the West. So in the West, the thing that is the worst now is racism. But in Vietnam, it's different because, as I said, we're lucky to win the war against both colonialism and imperialism. So we face a different problem. That is why, generally speaking, Vietnamese people do not understand very deeply about racism. And what they understand is a definition that coming from liberals, which is very, very sad.
Okay. So I really want to try to find real quick that sorry. me see. Did you ever? Right.
Yes.
I just real quick want to see if I can find that statistics.
All right.
I'm just trying to find. I'm sorry. I'm trying to find that tweet about
I wrote about that a lot. I mean, I don't know exactly what tweet you're talking about. Oh my god! I saw something that brought a tear to my eye. A paper straw that was actually wrapped in paper.
a paper straw that was wrapped in paper.
Yeah, it's so good for environment.
Grant, you can just switch it. Grant, you can just Grant, when you get a chance, just switch to the master camera, and we'll just leave it on the master camera. If you could do that. All right, I'm gonna go switch it to the master camera.
I do it.
Do you know how to do it?
Yes, I do.
All right, thanks. Okay, so we're gonna next week we will have this all ironed out. I think that the issue is there's a rainstorm. There's a rainstorm happening, and so Grant's connection is bad. So we do not have our producer right now. We're gonna have to fly solo for the rest of the stream. But anyway, so let's see. So all right, I can't find. It's all right. I can't find that tweet thread. We'll look at that next week. Thanks for bearing with us, folks. We are just, setting up our new studio, learning this new technology, and getting things going. But once we get it all ironed out, it's going to be great. Dialectical development, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're learning by doing. We did a tech rehearsal last night. Everything worked fine, but it wasn't raining last night where Grant is, and it is now.
Guy,
So.
why can't we be friends? Why can't we be friends?
Yeah, that's.
Oh my
Well,
God.
I mean, see, that's the problem. It's like one of the problems with liberalism is that they just literally think that if every single individual just changes their mind, their individual mind, that's the solution to things like this. You just have to make everybody stop being racist.
I want to answer this. Why I call the West? I mean, in the West, not just the USA. I do not call the USA the West. I mean, the West is. I mean, including
the implication
Canada, Australia, Europe.
This person is trying to imply, I guess, that only the USA has these issues with racism.
Like
which
the
is
West
absurd.
is only the USA. Excuse me. I'm sorry, but like.
No. You get what they're trying to say, right? They're being an asshole. They're
Yeah,
saying
they're really being an asshole.
they're saying that only. I guess they're trying to imply that only the USA has these problems or something. The whole West, what we call the West, is white supremacist. Okay, I mean it's the white supremacist core of the empire.
Exactly.
And when we say the West, we're using the term that the fucking chauvinists themselves use to describe themselves. Okay, when you have like British, who was that politician who, I think it was a British politician who was talking about how we have to protect the garden and the jungle.
Like that.
The Western chauvinists are the ones who created this dichotomy.
Yeah.
Just like white people are the ones who created the whole concept of whiteness in order to enforce systemic racism. So when Luna, a Vietnamese person who is a victim of racist colonization, talks about the West, I think it's pretty obvious what she's talking about. She's talking about countries like the USA, France, which colonized her country.
Yes.
The UK, which has colonized countless countries.
Canada,
which has had
indigenous people.
Right.
Australia, also a settler country.
Right. So these are what we talk about when we say the West. So
That is what we in Vietnamese we call westernization too.
I think that we should not feed these trolls though, Luna. We shouldn't even address these kinds of comments. They're ridiculous. So anyway, this is a good point from Mega Hexor. It's funny how all these Nazis always come from Twitch. We need our good Twitch comrades sounding off in the chat right now.
Twitch comrades.
We don't have a huge Twitch following, but yeah, it would be nice to get some rad folks on Twitch sounding off right now, just to push back against that stereotype about the gamer channel, the gamer streaming channel. Okay, we got some comrades in the chat now.
Yay.
Fuck Nazis from Sail On. Okay, there we go.
Uh-huh.
That's all we needed to hear. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Balance is restored. So okay.
Free speech.
All right. I think that Slop Deucer's back on deck, by the way, so that's good.
Mhm.
All right. I feel like we're getting our synergy back. Let's talk about another example of racist technology.
Oh, April. Luna has a patient of a god. American, your shirt is really nice. Well,
Thank you. Look at that. Close up on the shirt.
look at that.
Luna helped me find this shirt at what was that? The place where they sell all the counterfeit and fallen off of a truck clothing in Hanoi.
We love hunting for clothes in,
I'm not gonna say the name of the shop because I don't want anyone to find out about it.
Exactly.
Because I'm
It's
not
our
sure
secret.
how you know how it is with shirts. Okay. You wouldn't download a shirt, would you?
What are you talking about? But what
Some
did
people
the-
know what I'm talking about. No thanks. All right, Asian student asks AI for a professional pic for LinkedIn, gets turned into a white lady.
What
Much
in
to her
the world?
surprise, the AI tool gave her a fairer complexion, dark blonde hair, and blue eyes. So here you can see exactly. I mean, this is.
She looks way better in the original pic.
Luna, that is like not even remotely
I
the
know.
point.
I know. I'm just stating my thought.
All right. An Asian MIT graduate was left shocked after she asked artificial intelligence AI. This is so funny because, sorry, can we just for a second talk about
It's
how funny?
not even AI.
I know.
It's learning machine.
It's machine learning technology, and it's hardly even that, but it's just funny that she asked artificial intelligence, AI, to create a professional portrait of herself for her LinkedIn profile. According to Boston Globe, 24-year-old Rona Wang prompted the Playground AI image editor to make her headshot seem more professional. See, this is. However, the result was not what she expected. Sharing the picture on X, oh God, don't call it X.
Ugh.
Everyone needs to not call it X. No
Please
one's
call it Twitter.
calling it that. Twitter, she wrote, was trying to get a LinkedIn profile with AI editing, and this is what it gave me. In the first pic, Miss Wang is seen wearing a maroon MIT sweatshirt, which to me, that's pretty professional, right?
Yeah.
She uploaded the image generator with the instruction, give the girl from the original photo a professional LinkedIn profile photo. And it turned her into a white lady. Much to her surprise, the AI tool gave her a fairer complexion, dark blonde hair, and blue eyes. Simply put, AI turned her into a white woman. My initial reaction upon seeing the result was amusement. However, I'm glad to see that this has catalyzed a larger conversation around AI bias and who is or isn't included in this new wave of technology. She added that racial bias is a recurring issue in AI tools and that the results had put her off them. I haven't gotten any usable results from AI photo generators or editors yet, so I'll have to go without a new LinkedIn profile photo for now, she added. Her tweet also caught the attention of Suhail Doshi, the founder of Playground AI. The models aren't instructable like that, so I'll pick any generic thing based on the prompt. Unfortunately, they're not smart enough. Happy to help you get a result, but it takes a bit more effort than something like ChatGPT. See, this is just excuses, though. Because they don't want to address the fact that the data sets that are being used, this is the key. This is the point here. The data sets that are being used are the stem of it's the entry point for racism into these systems, right? Because it's all that's why they call these like ChatGPT is a large language model, because they have this large, massive database of language, and with the photographs, it's a large database of photos and images, and that is the entry point, the vector through which racism enters these models. But they don't want to address that. They just want to pretend that it's your fault for not using the right prompt. Another user also expressed his displeasure and wrote, Rona Wankin is an Asian American who asked an AI software to make her look more professional. What she got back was a photo with lighter skin and blue eyes. We must make sure AI software isn't pushing racial bias. Now that's the key, okay? And I think we can move on from here. The key is that these technologies are being rolled out too quickly.
Exactly.
And the reason is because of capitalism.
Absolutely.
Because they just want to start sucking the profits out of it. They want to get the money. They invested a lot of money in this. They want to return. It's commoditization, right? It's classic commoditization. They don't care about the social impacts. They don't care about the effects it has on Asian people or black people. They don't care about the black folks who are getting put in prison falsely now because of this technology. They only care about making as much money as possible, as quickly as possible. And this is all just a commodity.
And also it's very dangerous now because they hide behind an AI, something called AI.
Oh yeah.
So that's like we don't know anybody to to look for problem when we have it. It's like, oh, it's AI. It's like,
yeah. That's an excellent point.
Yeah.
Because like think about it like this, okay? If this technology were like if this happened like let's say 20 years ago somebody sent their photo to a professional photo editor, right? And they said like a corporation, like say there's because these exist, these corporations that are like, photography studios, and they say, "Hey, I want a more professional image. Can you Photoshop this to make it look more professional?" Well, an individual human being would have to go and make those corrections and stuff. And if they turned her into a white person, then obviously you would have this like
exactly who to talk to,
right?
In this
there'd be quote unquote accountability. Now,
exactly.
There would obviously still have been systemic racial issues that would have introduced it, but liberals would have an easy way out because they could say like, oh, it was this individual person's fault. We fired that person. Remember that's how corporations tend to deal with racism cropping up in their, like when there's a big kerfluffle or public affairs event in which corporations get accused of racism, they usually try to find some individual to blame. And then they fire that individual and then they say that they've solved the problem. Well, AI makes it even more easy for them to just kind of bury the tracks and pretend that there's nothing going on that's racist, as we saw in that tweet from the executive, because they'll just say like, oh, it's not our fault. It's this, it's just the nature of this technology. It's like a black box. You just throw stuff in and it throws stuff out. We don't know how it works, and it's not our fault that it's racist. And so it's just another way of obfuscating the systemic racism and the racism inherent in capitalism. Because in a reasonable society that wasn't governed by the most greedy people and where power wasn't directly correlated to corporate profits, right? In a more reasonable society, in a more equitable and just society, people would be pumping the brakes right now and saying, wait a minute, this needs a lot more attention and work and focus before we start using this for things like policing.
Yeah.
To put people in prison.
Exactly.
But we're not doing that because there's money to be made. That's the key. Now, this kind of reminds me too of do you remember the story about the Orientalism? Like, so there's this AI.
Yeah.
This AI art won a contest. I'm seeing if I can find it.
Exactly. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's a picture that created by AI, and it won. It won.
It won a competition. I'm trying to find it, but at any rate, the interesting thing about it is that it was basically based on this literally Orientalist art style.
Yeah.
Okay, so there was like basically this racist style of art that goes back to like the 18th and 19th centuries, baked into this AI art that was generated. So, even with the art that's being generated, you're seeing these racist manifestations. And it's like nobody is taking responsibility for this. There's I haven't seen anybody discussing ways of fixing that.
I mean, AI is what the input that people, the information that they put in the AI. So like when the information that they put in is rich with racism, of course, AI is racist itself, and it's just a learning machine. It's a learning machine, and it tell you, it show you a very painful truth that like the information on the internet, generally speaking, is racist. That is why the information that they use as input into AI create racist pictures or racist accusation or racist essay, racist saying or something. It is how racist the internet is, and it is the racism that we non-white people have to deal with every single day. Speaking as a Vietnamese communist having a YouTube video, nearly in every single video that I do, I make up to give you information. I have to, when I do the research, I have to constantly fight against the false information and the racism in the research itself that I have, like it's really painful for me to have to go through all of that
Oh yeah.
in order to find the truth.
The mountains and mountains of misinformation, and it goes beyond racism as well. I mean, and it goes beyond just like internet culture. The corporate press and big publishing houses and corporate media, all of this stuff is not only systemically racist, it's also virulently anti-communist. They use a lot of false information, misinformation about history, about present day society. It all just gets baked into this stuff, and then the AI is just going to draw from that database of shitty information, right? So I don't know. So the fact is that these systems are reflecting our society, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's a bad thing. That's not a good thing, because we have a very racist society, and the people who control the publishing houses, the encyclopedias, the corporate news, all of the stuff, it's all systemically racist. Now, why is that? Why would that be? It's because white supremacism serves capital.
Hegemony.
Yeah. So capitalism defines the ways in which racism manifests in our society.
Yeah.
And it goes all the way back to colonialism and the fact that it was a convenient way to divide the working class.
And conquer.
Remember that in the like proto-capitalist era, when colonialism was taking root and the quote unquote new world, which had been there all along, was becoming this like economic powerhouse. The closest thing we had to an organized proletariat at that time were indigenous people and enslaved black people. And keeping those folks suppressed, not just suppressed, but also walled off from white workers was vital. Okay? That's the origin of white supremacism and racism. So this whole caste system of racism was developed. And that's what racism really is under capitalism. It's a caste system.
It's a caste system.
With white people at the top of the caste, right?
Yeah.
And whiteness is totally socially constructed. It doesn't even really exist. There's no scientific basis for whiteness whatsoever.
There's no DNA. This is no white DNA.
Yeah.
There's nothing. It's just a social construct thing. And it is used to divide and conquer. So Vietnam, we are just lucky because, as I said, generations of Vietnamese people had to die and fight so we can have a little, a hub, safe hub for Vietnamese people to be born, like our generation, my generation, born without, receiving racism in our daily life. But the moment that we walk out of that hub, the moment that we go into the internet and go into the English-speaking sphere, now that reeks with racism. That was why I was born in a poor village in Vietnam in the middle of nowhere. I didn't have a stable electricity, no clean water, and my favorite snack was actually a real grasshopper. So like how poor it was. But then I didn't have to face any racism until the moment I went on the internet. I started my channel. It was in 2018, 2019. And people, started talking and asking me, but then also like I received attack coming from racist assholes. So like, oh boy, and so that is what you mean. You say racism sucks. It sucks. Like, wow.
Is that a Quantum Leap reference?
Right? Maybe.
You just said, oh boy. We're watching Quantum Leap right now. McClubbin got my joke. Would you download a pizza? I'd love to download a pizza right now, actually.
If only I can feel it in my mouth.
They're using synthesized voices in commercials just so they don't have to pay voice actors.
Yup.
And I mean, it's like, again, the technology is being rolled out to make money for capitalists. That's the only reason. Like, it's not to improve society. Don't get it twisted. Don't believe any of the propagandistic claims. The people who control the technology are the people who control the economy and the people who control the means of production. It's all in the service of capitalism. This is basically a synthesis of what we've been saying. So I think we could read this one and then move on to the next topic, because this basically synthesizes what we're saying. Nobody programmed the AI to garner specific results like an algorithm, but if the data that it's presented has systemic racism baked in, then the responsibility is dispersed to the culture and not the one using the AI. And that's a really good point too. Like, there's all kinds of ways in which this is going to have ripple effects. So now somebody can go out and make a racist meme or whatever, and then they can hide behind saying, oh, I didn't know that it was racist. It's just the AI generated this. How could I know, And to some extent, that might even be true, right? I mean, like the individual who produces the content. Like I could totally see this happening. I guarantee you it will happen if it hasn't already happened. Where in the way it has a lot to do with capitalist oppression of workers too. So like, let me tell you what I'm talking about. Okay, say you are a freelance social media manager. Okay, and your job is just basically to post on Twitter and Facebook and shit like that for your corporate overlords all day, every day, right? I've had this job. I've done this job.
I like this. See what Spook says. It's garbage in and garbage out.
Yeah.
AI.
That's a very common like programming. Like, yeah. Of course, Silver Spook would know because Silver Spook is a fantastic indigenous game developer.
Yes.
So of course, Silver Spook would have a handle on these things. So say you're a marketing manager, social media manager, or just a freelancer or whatever, and your job is just to post on social media all day, every day, right?
Yeah.
And you're getting pressure, and now the pressure is going to be higher, right? Because they're going to be like, oh, we need more posts. We used to ask you to write 5 posts per day. Well, now that ChatGPT's out there, we need you to post 20, 30. That's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen.
Yes.
And the pressure is going to get ramped up. We need more engagement. You have these tools now. You have to use them and generate more content, right? So, of course, the social media managers are going to go and they're going to go into ChatGPT and say, oh, hey, give me 25 tweets related to whatever your product is, right? You know, hot dogs or whatever, right? And ChatGPT is going to go and generate 25 posts. And guess what? Some of those are going to have racist imagery, racist language built into them.
Yeah.
And then you're stressed out. You're trying to make your deadline, which has been, you know, the pressure's already much higher. You're under pressure. You're just going to throw the stuff out. You might not even notice it, right? And then there's going to be a big social media backlash about it. And then, you know, but then the company's just going to say, oh, well, you know, ChatGPT did this. And it's just like nobody wants to take responsibility for the fact that what we have here is a racist society, a white supremacist society, which is just getting cooked into all this technology. Nobody wants to admit that or acknowledge that. So,
Super chat from Gio. Super chat from
super
Gio.
chat from Gio. Thank you, Gio.
Hey, thank you.
I don't see a message. If you meant to leave a message, just let us know. But okay. So yeah, okay. So we're coming up on the top of the hour.
Mm-hmm.
We'll reset a little bit. If you're just joining us, hello, welcome. We are testing out and experimenting with some new technology ourselves in the studio. So we might have some more issues with that. We might not. I don't know. It's been rolling smoothly for the last 20 or 30 minutes or so. But yeah, we have 3 cameras now.
Mm-hmm.
Would be a convenient time to, there you go, cut to master. That camera.
Oh, I like this idea. There's space for a large sticker on the lid of Luna's laptop.
I know.
Here.
We need to bling your computer out. That's for sure. We have plans. It is on every camera. Luna's camera is all pervasive. Yeah, that's good real estate. Anybody want to buy some ad
Yeah, want to
space?
buy some ad right here? Correct.
Your company here.
Your slogan here.
Just make sure it's not produced by AI. Non-compete co-op at Gmail.
Thank
Good
you,
job, slot
Slop.
producer. Good job. That's right. That's what a producer's job is.
Dan Sullivan, thank you so much for his super chat.
The U.S. response to COVID has thoroughly disabused me of the notion that free speech is a good idea. Great transition into our next topic. That's exactly what our main topic is today. Free speech is an illusion. I think we can all safely say that.
Yeah, there's no speech without any consequence.
That's true, but also the idea that everyone has the equal ability to speak freely in a place like the USA. BS.
Nobody's gonna listen to you if Jeff Bezos is like speaking over you.
Exactly, right, yeah. Speech in the USA is bought and paid for, okay? That's the point. And so speech, there's a dialectical relationship between all of these things. Speech, power, wealth, right? If you have a huge platform, that's a form of power.
Yes.
In order to have a huge platform under capitalism, you have to have a lot of wealth.
Yes.
The wealth buys you the power through speech, right? These things are all dialectically related. Okay, it's not like
Murdoch, he owned the whole Fox News.
yeah.
That's like just speech and money and wealth right there.
Now I have a whole video about this on Elon Musk called "The Man Who Bought Free Speech." Maybe Luna can put a link to that in the chat.
What are you talking about?
A video that I made called "The Man Who Bought Free Speech." I just
okay.
That's what I'm talking about.
Free speech. Okay.
You could put that in the chat. But basically, the point of the video is that there are. So okay, how do we set this up? So first of all, we need to talk about the difference between virtual rights and synthesized rights. Okay, a virtual right is a right that you have kind of like in theory on paper, but if it hasn't been synthesized, it's kind of meaningless. Like so, for instance, Luna has the right to own a luxury yacht.
I do.
No one's stopping
I do have
Luna
right. No one's
from
stopping
owning
me
luxury
from owning like 5 yachts or something, or
Yeah,
a whole
of
entire
yachts.
island in Hawaii or something.
Right. But if you don't have the wealth to purchase the yachts, then it's not a synthesized freedom, right?
It's meaningless.
Right.
It doesn't mean anything. I can own the moon. Nobody's stopping me, but it's meaningless.
I think actually somebody would stop you from owning the moon.
Oh, really?
I think there are international treaties
Okay, some
that
star
will
out
keep you
there.
from owning the moon. But but no, okay. Under capitalism, though, it's like if you have a right, they want you to think like, oh, everybody has the right to free speech. Everyone can speak their mind, right? But as we know from, there are people who have documented this much better than we could in the time that we have today. So, for instance, Parenti's book, Inventing Reality,
Yeah.
talks a lot about how speech and the press actually function under capitalism. And the fact of the matter is, there are ways that people get censored and ideas and information get censored under capitalism without having to use censorship, like overt censorship.
Yeah.
So, for instance,
Say it.
sorry, you're typing so much. What are you like typing a novel over there?
I just
She's like a
type
hacker typing. over
and
there.
mind
She's
my
like,
own freaking business.
Sorry, it's distracting.
Oh my gosh, ADHD.
ADHD.
Jesus.
All right.
Where are you at?
I forgot.
Well, here we go.
No, all right. Let's go back to the example that Luna. Why do you have to?
Why do I have to type?
No, I'm saying when I was saying like Luna has the right to own a yacht, and then you have to like escalate to the moon. That's where it all went off the rails.
So.
Luna has the right to own a yacht,
Yes.
but if she doesn't have the money to buy a yacht,
Yes.
then that right is not synthesized.
It doesn't mean anything. It's just lip service. It's BS.
Now, the point isn't that everyone needs to be able to buy. That's not the point I'm trying to make. The point is that if you can't actually practice the right that you have on paper, it's not really a right, right? So if you say that Luna has freedom of speech, well, that's not really true. Because for one thing, if Luna makes a video and it gets demonetized, which happens all the fucking time,
Exactly.
then it gets suppressed in the algorithm. There are other things that suppress speech in the algorithm, and we don't even know what they are because guess what? YouTube and Twitter and Facebook, all these platforms, they don't have to tell us shit about how their algorithms function. They don't have to be, they can be completely opaque about it, and that's totally fine under capitalism. There's no demand that they tell us how their platforms operate and function beneath the.
And also,
Good.
this true story about my newest video. I got a lot of subscribers from that last great video, right? And after like 4 days or something, YouTube somebody finally like saw something, so it cracked my channel down. It stopped. It paused my subscribers for like 12 hours, and then after that moment, my subscribers like before it was like woo like that, but now 12 hours pause. Something fucking happened. I didn't know nothing, and I couldn't know because nobody's gonna explain that. But after that, it's just like my subscriber was like this, back to zero. It's like
Yeah. It was like literally somebody turned off the spigot. That's literally what it was like. And it happened. I watched it happen. It happened like instantaneously.
yeah.
And it's not the first time that it's happened. It's happened with Luna's tweets
it's
before.
absolutely fishy.
There are tweets that Luna has where it says that there are 0 quote tweets, but we know that they've had quote tweets. And there are tweets that Luna has where it'll say there are like 20 quote tweets, and then you click it and it doesn't show any of the quote tweets.
Yeah.
And these are people that were saying positive, nice things about it. And specifically, it tends to be the ones where she's talking about like the CIA and what's the one you did? One really good one about
Pew Research.
that's not the one I'm talking about though.
I have so many good tweets.
The one about the what is the freaking? It's not NED. It's the USAID. Luna has a great thread about USAID that definitely something happened where they like turned the spigot off on that tweet. And it's just like really shady what's going on with that. So anyway, but we don't know how that works. But so it's like, can you truly say that Luna has free? Now, of course, the liberal, the capitalist bourgeois democracy response is, well, there's nothing stopping Luna from going out and starting her own platform. Luna could start her own Twitter, which is just absurd.
How little they know.
Do you know how much money you need? Like, okay, like for instance, Twitter. Okay, it's not a particularly novel platform. There's nothing unique about the way Twitter works. What makes Twitter valuable is all of that capacity. The fact that you can have, now of course that's been stumbling lately since Musk took over. But the fact that millions of people can use that platform constantly on an ongoing basis, it's extremely expensive to put something like that together. And talk about video streaming, forget about it. Even like we got 71 people watching right now across all of our platforms, right? If Luna and I wanted to make our own website where we stream to 71 people, that's a very expensive piece of technology.
Exactly.
To try to build a server that can handle all of that. And then of course there are things like peer networks and that sort of thing, but they're not. The technology does not yet exist to where anyone could just pull themselves up by their own bootstraps and build an alternative to Twitter or YouTube or something like that. Okay, it's just the technology isn't there.
Free
speech bundle and save. Now get free speech for $6.99 with ads or $14.99 for a premium subscription. It's just So this is exactly what the world we live in. You could buy ads. You could buy ads and get, like Luna could go out if she wanted to get 50,000 views on her next video, guaranteed, she can go out and buy ads for it, right?
Yeah.
But how much does that cost? That's extremely expensive to get that kind of reach.
My company said everybody can just, be a billionaire by pulling themselves up by their own bootstraps.
That's what they want you. That's definitely what they want you to think, right? I mean, even Elon Musk tries to like play up to this myth by pretending that he came from like a humble background, But
mirror mind owners, yes, very humble.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Elon Musk started with nothing but an inherited emerald mine from his wealthy father in colonial South Africa, right? But anyway, the point is, free speech is an illusion under the capitalist system. Now, okay. There's another point. There's another side to this too, and I'm trying to just kind of cut off nip in the bud any of these like little peanut gallery comments that often arise when we talk about this stuff. Some people will say like, "Oh, so what are you saying? Like everyone should just have like the equal platform where like that's impossible. We couldn't make it so everyone has equal speech or whatever." It's like maybe it's not possible for everyone to have an equal voice in society, but we can work towards that. We could develop towards that, and we should be developing towards that as humanity, right? That should be our collective goal, is to build a society over time that is more just and more equitable, where people are on more equal footing. So, there are so many different ways we could do that. Like workers' unions are one way in which workers in the workplace can have more speech, more impact with their voices heard more in their own workplace, right? Which hopefully can lead to things like cooperatives. And, eventually we want to build a society where workers own the means of production outright, right? That's the goal of communism. And then when it comes to things like, okay, so you could build, and people do it. Like for instance, LGBTQ plus movement, right?
Yeah.
100 years ago, there was very little speech that represented the LGBTQ plus community, right? It took LGBTQ plus activists going out there and literally risking their lives and their freedom to build a movement that gave them a voice. They had to build power. You cannot have a voice without having power. Okay, that's what this really is all boils down to. The reason that Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk can make a tweet, and it's like that tweet becomes a part of the news cycle.
Exactly. I mean, it's so ridiculous that I'm sorry, but most of his tweets are horrible, meaningless, or saying some like really just like not important or even funny at all. But they have like millions of like attention, and then like hundreds of times and of retweets and likes. And like, excuse me, if you just look at the quality of the tweet, it's like nothing.
Does Elon Musk actually have anything valuable to say? No.
Yeah. No.
Obviously not. But Elon Musk makes a tweet and it can like impact the freaking stock market.
Yeah.
It gets so much reach, right? And it's because he has an extremely large amount of wealth.
Yes.
So people who have a lot of wealth automatically are heard, have their voices heard. Those of us who are marginalized, people who have disabilities like me, non-binary folks like me, Asian people like Luna, black folks, they're marginalized people who are oppressed, workers, poor people, houseless people. In order for us to have our voices heard, we have to build power. We have to build power. It's like this whole idea that, because you have freedom of speech in the USA, everyone's free to speak their mind. It's meaningless unless you have the power and the means to actually have your voice not just heard, but to impact the world, right? To have an impact on the world. So that's kind of the background for the articles we're going to read next, okay? So first, this one is kind of tangentially related, but I think you'll see how it fits into the mix here. Twitter threatens, Luna, can you throw it up on screen?
Yeah.
Twitter sues nonprofit that tracks hate speech. All right. Talk about, okay, this is like one of those examples of free speech for thee and not for me and not for thee. The Center for Countering Digital Hate said it received a letter. I love how that, at least in the headlines, the New York Times still calls it Twitter.
Yeah.
They got a letter from Twitter's parent company accusing it of trying to hurt the social platform with its research. Elon Musk has over the last year threatened legal action against tech competitors, employees, and people who use Twitter, which he owns. Okay. Now he is also taking aim at organization that studies hate speech and misinformation on social media. X Corp, the parent company of the social media company, sent a letter on July 20th to the Center for Countering Digital Hate, a nonprofit that conducts research on social media, accusing the organization of making a series of troubling and baseless claims that appear calculated to harm Twitter generally and its digital advertising business specifically, threatening to sue. The letter cited research published by the Center for Countering Digital Hate in June, examining hate speech on Twitter, which Mr. Musk has renamed X.com. The research consisted of 8 papers, including one that found that Twitter had taken no action against 99% of the 100 Twitter Blue accounts the center reported for tweeting hate. The letter called the research false, misleading, or both, and said the organization had used improper methodology. Now, this is just wild. I don't know if I've ever heard of this. Of a media company. Mm-hmm. We call it social media, but like at the end of the day, this is a media company suing a research organization for like not researching to the standards that they want them to use because it's critical of their media company.
Yeah.
It's wild. Imran Ahmed, the chief executive of the Center for Countering Digital Hate, said Elon Musk's actions represent a brazen attempt to silence honest criticism and independent research. He added that Mr. Musk wanted to stem the tide of negative stories and rebuild a relationship with advertisers. The center also said it did not accept any funding from tech companies, governments, or other affiliates. In a blog post Monday evening, X announced that it had filed a lawsuit against the Center for Countering Digital Hate for actively working to prevent free expression. The suit was filed in federal court in the Northern District of California. Twitter's advertising business had been struggling under the ownership of Mr. Musk, who bought the company last year. U.S. ad revenue for the 5 weeks from April 1st to the first week of May was $88 million, down 59% from a year earlier. Advertisers may have been spooked by Mr. Musk's changes to the social network, including the removal of rules, blah, 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 blah. Okay, the letter was at least the third legal threat by X Corporation in the last 2 months.
Huh?
Yeah. In May, it sent a letter to Satya Nadella, Microsoft's chief executive, accusing the tech giant of improperly using its data. This month, it also sent a letter to Meta, which owns Facebook, saying it copied Twitter's trade secrets when it created Threads, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's the end of that article. But I just think that that is absolutely wild. I mean, the fact is that Twitter, since Elon Musk took over, does have more racism on it,
Yep.
is less likely to take people off for being racist. And here's some proof of that. This is a new story. Just, I think yesterday or something like that. Let me find this. Hold on. Elon Musk is saying that if you get in trouble at work, here we go. I found the article. Let's read this real quick. This is kind of breaking news. I just added a new article. Okay. Grant and I are fighting over the controls here. All right. Elon Musk says Twitter will pay legal fees of any users punished for posting. Okay. Now I wonder if I want a communist to test this theory.
Yeah, right.
If you've been thinking of quitting your job anyway, and if you don't care about the repercussions of openly becoming a communist on social media, I would be curious to see a communist getting fired from their work for being communist and then having Elon pay their legal fees. You know what? Here's the fact, though, real quick. Before we read this article, I want him to say this very clearly. This is bullshit. Elon Musk lies about shit like this all the time.
Yes.
Remember when Elon Musk said that he was going to pay for like everyone in Flint, Michigan to get clean drinking water?
Something like that.
He never did that. Okay? He lies all the time. Okay? He's a fucking like he's just a liar. That boy's a liar.
Stop.
He's a liar.
Please.
Luna, you got to join the Ice Spice Army,
I
okay?
don't enjoy. I hate it. Get out of my nerves.
Elon Musk says Twitter will pay legal fees of any users punished for posting. I'll take things that are never going to happen for 500, Alex. Elon Musk says he'll pay the legal fees of anyone who's been unfairly treated by their employer for posting on Twitter, according to a tweet sent late Saturday. The only problem, the billionaire owner of the site hasn't made clear how people should reach out, let alone define what unfairly treated might mean. If you were unfairly treated by your employer due to posting or liking something on this platform, we will fund your legal bill. No limit. Please let us know. Musk, let us know. Just text Elon Musk. He's standing by, waiting for your SMS. All you got to do is...
another promise came from Musk. He promised that he would give California a breathing machine during COVID.
Yes, that's right. There's a whole list of lies that Elon Musk has made where he said he would pay for shit and he just never paid for it.
Fucking liar, asshole.
An account called Clown World, which posts right-wing oriented content, simply tweeted amazing, but others are skeptical that it would happen at all, like me. I mean, and who knows? Maybe he'll take some token bullshit and do it, but he probably won't, just based on his track record. And regardless, I guarantee you, he's not going to be helping any communists out. But why did I actually bring this article up? Because you know what this is, dog whistling. You know the dog whistle behind this. Mm. He's not just talking about protecting speech. He's talking about protecting hate speech.
Yeah.
The speech that he wants to protect is hate speech.
Yes.
That's why he bought Twitter to begin with, because he is a fucking, he is a fascist. Can we just, real quick, we got to make this clear.
Straight up fascist.
Elon Musk is a fascist.
Yes,
and
he is.
Wants to protect fascists, and he wants to build fascist ideology online. He plows around with fascists on Twitter all the time. Okay, I'm sorry. Exactly. Go ahead and say what you were going to say.
What I want to say is that, mostly when, you hear a person that advocates so much for free speech, it is the free speech for fascists. Free speech for allowing us to the tokens, and they can say whatever the heck they want without receiving any consequence.
Yep, that's
that
right.
is a free speech that they meant.
There's two things that they might be talking about. They might be talking about free speech for bigots without consequences, right? And that's the whole thing about cancel culture, where people are like, oh, cancel culture.
Exactly.
They want to be able to have hate speech without any social consequences, which is exactly that. Being permissive about hate speech and bigotry and that sort of thing is exactly what leads to the escalation of bigotry in society, and the bigots know that.
Yeah.
Okay, There's mountains and mountains of. If you look at the sociological and psychological research on this, there's no refutation. It all proves that if we are permissive of hate speech, if we're permissive of bigotry, if we look the other way when people say bigoted bullshit, it increases up to the point of violence.
It will build up.
So we can't be tolerant of intolerance. That's
it's very, very, very important.
But the other kind of speech that they're talking about would be capitalists. I mean, when we talk about freedom of speech in the USA, it tends to mean the freedom of capitalists to buy and own speech and presses and platforms and that sort of thing.
Which is like, Elon Musk just paid how many $1 billion to buy Twitter and just turned into a total shithole.
But not to say that it was great before that.
Yeah. I mean, it was not even great before that, but it now is like even like 100 times worse.
It's gone from the ownership of liberals to fascists, which is like they're all in the same camp. They all have the same function, which is serving capital, serving the interests of capital. McClellan says, as if getting canceled has actually negatively affected anyone anyway. What a joke. They successfully co-opted that into its own lucrative business model, which is absolutely true. You get, hold on, I gotta go ban this ding dong in Twitch. Where's our Twitch mods, folks? Come on. So anyway, shoot. Uh-oh, gotta mute my tab. So anyway. Oh, it's your channel. It's your channel.
Oh, man.
Can you go to your Twitch channel and ban them?
Oh, all right.
All right, so anyway, where was I?
Where was it?
I got a great article. We don't have time to read it, though. Shit, we'll have to read this next time, I guess. Maybe we will. But there's the main article I wanted to read. Oh, shoot. Sorry, folks. I messed up some stuff with my pre-show organization here, which, believe it or not, I do have some pre-show organization.
Oh. Yeah, you do. But then... how do I do this? I don't...
What are you looking for? You just log into your Twitch and
what?
ban, /ban, /ban. That person.
And then how? I don't know how.
Type in that person's name, and then they're banned.
Okay. That's it, right?
Yep. All right, I found the article I was looking for. This is the main event, folks. I'm hot as hell.
No, I'm cold.
Why do you just put on a jacket?
You can take off that jacket.
I can't. I won't look fly anymore. I gotta look fly, Luna. All right. This is silly. This is a silly article, but it's a great demonstration of the doctrine of free speech that the bourgeois democracy lovers, the free speech enjoyers would have you believe. Even lies are protected speech. New Trump indictment bulldozes the First Amendment by Jonathan Turley, opinion contributor. Get rid of this. Okay. The latest federal indictment of former President Donald Trump was handed down this week with all of the authority of papal infallibility. Pundits lined up to proclaim that the case as the greatest prosecution in history. Former Obama administration acting Solicitor General Neil Katyal even declared that the indictment touched off the biggest legal case in our lifetimes, perhaps almost ever. It's up there with cases like Dred Scott. It's up there with Brown versus Board of Education. What was missing was any serious consideration of the implication of allowing the government to criminalize false statements in a campaign. Trump was not charged with conspiracy to incite violence or insurrection. Rather, he was charged because he spread lies that there had been outcome determinative fraud in the election and that he had actually won. Now, I don't want to engage too much with the liberal politics here, but how is lying and saying that you didn't lose the election when you did, not even within the bourgeois democratic framework, not insurrectionary? Isn't that what an insurrection is when you say, when you're running for president and you're a very powerful billionaire and you encourage your followers to rise up and enforce your quote unquote election when it's all predicated on lies. How is that not insurrectionary even in the bourgeois democracy framework? Anyway, somehow it's just a lie. It's not, it's like, it's okay to lie. You have the right to lie. So if your coup is predicated on a lie, then it's not a coup because it was just a lie and lie. This is the problem with Boolean logic.
Yeah.
This is why dialectical materialism kicks the ass of logic. Because logic, you could do shit like that. You could say, okay, a lie is a protected form of speech. Ipso facto, if my coup, my insurrection, is predicated on a lie, then therefore it's protected speech to have an insurrectionary coup. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about, right? I mean, makes no sense. Anyway, okay, continue with the article. In order to secure convictions for this, Special Counsel Jack Smith would need to bulldoze through not just the First Amendment, that hallowed, beautiful amendment, but also existing case law holding that even false statements are protected.
Nemo. This country was literally founded on a bourgeois insurrection. It's only wrong when the poor do it.
This person is saying that Trump is being maligned and oppressed because he should be allowed to lie and say that the election was fixed when it wasn't. I mean, it's absurd. Okay. The government acknowledges that the Constitution protects false statements made in campaigns, but it insists that Trump must have known that his statements were false and therefore was engaged in fraudulent statements to obstruct or challenge electoral results. As a threshold matter, one problem is immediately evident. If Trump actually did or does believe that he did not lose the election, the indictment collapses. And so in an effort to demonstrate his knowledge, the indictment details how many people told Trump that he was wrong about the election and wrong about the law. I was one of those voices. Trump did not listen to me, most legal analysts, or even his White House counsel. Instead, he listened to a small group of lawyers who assured him that a challenge might succeed and there was evidence of massive election fraud. But Trump is allowed to seek out enablers who tell him what he wants to hear. So the whole point of this is that, like, Trump has the right to stage an insurrectionary fascist coup and to lie and say and spread this misinformation, this fascist lie that he actually won the election. And it's protected speech. And it's like, this is the problem with this whole concept of like absolute free speech.
Ugh.
It's kind of like how, when racist people say that, slurs are just words, right? Like, go look at any oh my gosh, if you want to see a real dumpster fire of a comment section, go to like the YouTube video where, what's that guy named? Michael Richards, the guy that played Kramer, when he's a comedian and he said terrible, he said the N-word in a comedy act. And it was like, if you haven't seen this footage, I don't recommend you watch it, honestly. But it's very shocking. Okay. It's like, it's very hate-filled kind of a rant, right? And if you go and you look at the comments, there's all these racists in the comments saying like, oh, it's just a word. Why is everybody getting so triggered because of this word and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, people want to pretend on the one hand that speech has any power at all, when it obviously does, right? Speech can be a form of practice, right? It can have practical impact in the real world, obviously, right? But the point that they're trying to make is that, like, oh, you can literally say whatever you want. The whole idea of free speech absolutism. And by the way, this is always bullshit. Like Musk claimed to be a free speech absolutist and said that he bought Twitter in part because he wanted to enact this like free speech absolutist, anarcho-capitalist hell world. But it's not. He has banned all the people he said he wouldn't ban. Yeah. There's that one account that like follows his jet, tracks his jet around the world. It's like run by some teenager. And he said he wasn't going to ban that account, and then he did.
Yeah.
And the reason he did was because I think had something to do. He says it has something to do with one of his children getting like targeted or something like that. But it's like, yeah, he's a free speech absolutist until it impacts him in a way that he doesn't like. then suddenly the free speech absolutism goes out the window. So, I mean, at the end of the day, what we're really talking about here is not the whole concept and framework of rights is meaningless under capitalism. You don't actually have any rights under capitalism. What it really comes down to is power and who has power. And if you're very, very wealthy, you can do and say things that other people can't do and say. And if you are higher up in the hierarchy when it comes to things like white supremacism, gender, disability versus, ableism, you have a position of power and your voice carries a lot farther, right? So anyway, the point is that what this article is trying to say is that Trump can have an insurrection and can call fascists to violently overthrow the government because it's his right as a freedom of speech. And what we have to say as communists is this whole notion of free speech is bullshit. And what really matters are practical outcomes, the practical impacts.
It's just look at BLM in 2020 and how many people had to go to, pay with their lives and also go to prison and receive like a long sentence.
For peacefully protesting.
Peacefully protesting. But now a fascist call for fascist insurrection and it did happen and now he's protected.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
What a bourgeois democracy you have.
So, I mean, and then by the way, back to Musk for a moment, says that he's a free speech absolutist, and then he goes off and sues this, the article we just read, where he sues this research organization for conducting a study that doesn't paint Twitter in the best light. How is that? That doesn't sound like free speech absolutism. I think we do have time, actually. Let's jump over to, because I think that we kind of have got what we could out of that fucking article. That just goes on and on. But it's just like, it's just this logic loop where it's like, oh, Donald Trump, he's being convicted of just lying. It's not against the law to lie. It's like you could do whatever you want as long as you're lying. That's literally what he's saying.
I really don't understand what kind of country that has a law that lying is not like illegal.
Well, okay. Let's break this down, okay? What we're really talking about here is, again, power, okay? If you, okay, how can I, if you have a lot of wealth under capitalism, you can lie all you want.
Yeah.
But if I went out and said something, if I called for, to violently overthrow the government. Oh my goodness, yes. Right? Something like that, what would happen to me? I mean,
you would be charged with the DT.
Who knows? All kinds of stuff. Yeah, exactly. DT. So that's what it really comes down to. Now, I'm going to read something real quick just because I feel like this was very prescient. This is actually a speech by good old Vlad Lenin. But he's talking about thesis and report on bourgeois democracy and the dictatorship of the proletariat, March 4th. And this is basically from the first Congress of the Communist International in 1919. And I just think it's interesting because he talks about rights in a way that I think is really interesting. Let me share the screen here. I don't know. I think this is the first time we've ever read Lenin on BREADCAST. So here we go. Faced with the growth of the revolutionary workers' movement in every country, the bourgeoisie and their agents and the workers' organizations are making desperate attempts to find. This is really interesting. Okay, all right. At this time, this was a different time. This was the 1910s. If you've seen my video on the IWW and their operations in the 1910s, you'd kind of get a glimpse of the idea that in the 1910s, leading up to World War I, the radical workers' movement was huge. It was massive. Marxism, anarchism, radical unionism, industrial unionism, these movements were really, really freaking big. Yeah. And the bourgeoisie was really getting nervous, okay? And that's why what Lenin's saying here is that faced with the growth of revolutionary worker movements in every country, the bourgeoisie and their agents in the workers' organizations, which make no mistake, we all know this.
Yeah.
The bourgeoisie injects little spies and agents into every
Yep.
workers' organization that has any worth.
Yep.
Any party or any union or anything like that that starts to get any kind of power, they're going to get infiltrated and invaded. And that goes, by the way, for fucking internet communism, right? Like we definitely absolutely have agents working within this little space of like YouTube and Twitch and that kind of shit and Twitter. So they're making desperate attempts to find ideological and political arguments in defense of the rule of the exploiters. Condemnation of dictatorship and a sense of democracy are particularly prominent among these arguments. The falsity and hypocrisy of this argument, repeated in 1,000 strains by the capitalist press in the Burn Yellow International Conference in February 1919, are obvious to all who refuse to betray the fundamental principles of socialism. What I thought was really fascinating about this is it's like the more things change, the more they stay the same as far as capitalism goes.
Yeah.
So, okay, he says, firstly, so he's saying that like, basically, the capitalists are using this excuse of, they're calling communism like a dictatorship. Oh, it's a dictatorship of the proletariat. Oh, they're trampling on the rights of the capitalists, right? Is basically what it comes down to.
Yeah.
This argument employs the concepts of democracy in general and dictatorship in general without posing the question of the class concerned. And that's really important. When we talk about free speech in the USA, right, in that USA context, in that context of the enshrined First Amendment, which was handed to us by the founding fathers, we're talking about an analysis that is completely devoid of class consciousness and class analysis. Free speech for all. It's like Lenin says here, general free speech. It's meaningless. When you talk about it in that context, you're really just talking about the speech of the ruling class, because they're de facto the people who have the voice. They're de facto the people who have the means to be heard. They own not just the means of production, but the means of communication. They own the printing presses, the capitalist news media outlets, and all that kind of shit, right? Stuff we've been talking about all day today. This non-class or above-class presentation, which supposedly is popular, is an outright travesty of the basic tenet of socialism, namely its theory of class struggle, which socialists who have sided with the bourgeoisie recognize in words but disregard in practice. I really like that point. The socialists who have sided with the bourgeoisie. We see that so much today. The socialists who are much more concerned with the rights of the bourgeoisie than they are with actual class analysis. For in no civilized capitalist country does democracy in general exist. In no capitalist country does democracy in general exist. It doesn't exist because what we have is bourgeois democracy. That's exactly the next line. All that exists is bourgeois democracy, and is not a question of dictatorship in general, but of the dictatorship of the oppressed classes, i.e. the proletariat, over its oppressors and exploiters, i.e. the bourgeoisie, in order to overcome the resistance offered by the exploiters in their fight to maintain their domination. It's like when people talk about, for instance, the Cuban Revolution. Oh, you know, my grandpa lost his plantation and all of his slaves. How sad that is. Like that's the conversation they want to have.
Yeah, do you remember the meme? Like the communists executed my families and took away everything from my family, and then actually the family is a mansion, the family business is plantation,
and then the possessions of the enslaved people. Yeah.
Yeah, that is my family, my grandpa's story.
Yeah.
You don't have to speak. You know,
I mean, there are people who would say that Luna is oppressed because her grandfather had his land taken and redistributed to the village.
And at the same time, I am evil because I am a descendant of a landlord.
Right. It's like, whatever makes communists look bad, that's the line they'll take.
Yes.
That's always the line they'll take. All right. History teaches us that no oppressed class ever did or could achieve power without going through a period of dictatorship, i.e. the conquest of political power and forcible suppression of resistance always offered by the exploiters. You have to be really careful when we talk about this dictatorship of the proletariat stuff, because people they hear the word dictatorship and they get freaked out. But we're talking about a dictatorship which is composed of the vast majority of society.
99%.
More than 99% of society are workers.
Yeah.
Some of them might not think they're workers, especially the false conscious,
the bourgeois
proletariat, and the petty, and even the petty bourgeoisie. who really their interests are more aligned with the workers, even though none of them seem to realize it. So anyway, the bourgeoisie, whose domination is now defended by the socialists who denounce dictatorship in general and extol democracy in general, won power in the advanced countries through a series of insurrections, civil wars, and the forcible suppression of kings, feudal lords, and slave owners. This is very important. The bourgeoisie won their power through insurrection, civil wars, and forcible suppression of kings, feudal lords, and slave owners, and their attempts at restoration. It's again, good for me and not for thee. It's okay when George Washington rises up and uses force and violence to overthrow a king for the bourgeoisie, for the landed the landed slave-owning capitalist class, right? Which is what the bourgeois revolution of the USA was all about. That was okay. But when the workers want to rise up and do the same thing to the slave owners and the bourgeoisie, that's bad. It's good whenever the bourgeoisie does it to kings. It's bad whenever the workers want to do it to the bourgeoisie.
Yeah.
In books, pamphlets, Congress resolutions, and propaganda speeches, socialists have everywhere, thousands and millions of times, explained to people the class nature of these bourgeois revolutions and the bourgeois dictatorship. Yes, thank you. That's so true. How many times do we have to explain it? How many fucking times do we have to explain what we mean when we say dictatorship of the proletariat, proletarian revolution? There's at a certain point, you have to say that there's a willful misunderstanding of this. They're misunderstanding it on purpose. They're obfuscating it. They're spreading misinformation. They're trying to make you confused. This is why the present defense of bourgeois democracy under the cover of talk about democracy in general, and the present howls and shouts against proletarian dictatorship under the cover of shouts about dictatorship in general, are an outright betrayal of socialism. They are in fact desertion to the bourgeoisie, denial of the proletariat's right to its own proletarian revolution, and a defense of bourgeois reformism at the very historical juncture when bourgeois reformism throughout the world has collapsed and the war has created a revolutionary situation. In explaining the class nature of bourgeois civilization, bourgeois democracy, and the bourgeois parliamentary system, all socialists have expressed the idea formulated with the greatest scientific precision by Marx and Engels, namely that the most democratic bourgeois republic is no more than a machine for the suppression of the working class by the bourgeoisie, for the suppression of the working people by a handful of capitalists. It doesn't get more clear than that. There is not a single revolutionary, not a single Marxist among those now shouting against dictatorship and for democracy who has not sworn and vowed to the workers that he accepts this basic truth of socialism. But now when the revolutionary proletariat is in a fighting mood and taking action to destroy this machine of oppression, see, this is the thing. When people start to go and put their ideas into practice, that's when people start to push back. When the revolutionary proletariat is in a fighting mood and taking action to destroy this machine of oppression and to establish proletarian dictatorship, these traitors to socialism claim that the bourgeoisie have granted the working people pure democracy, have abandoned resistance, and are prepared to yield to the majority of the working people. They assert that in a democratic republic, there is not and never has been any such thing as a state machine for the suppression of labor by capital. No, we're a democracy, man. We're a democracy. The USA is a democracy, man. You have freedom of speech. You have freedom of speech, Luna. Pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. The Paris Commune, this is a little bit, I'm going to skip this one just because it's not as relevant today.
Yeah.
Because the working class has forgotten what the Paris Commune is. So that's kind of like no longer true. Most of this stuff still holds up, though. The significance of the Paris Commune lies in the fact that it endeavored to crush, to smash to its very foundations, the bourgeois state apparatus, the bureaucratic, judicial, military, and police machine, and to replace it by a self-governing mass workers' organization in which there was no division between legislative and executive power. All contemporary bourgeois democratic republics, including the German Republic, which the traitors to socialism in mockery of the truth describe as a proletarian republic, which we all know how that went with the German Republic, retain the state apparatus. We therefore again get quite clear confirmation of the point that the shouting in defense of democracy in general is actually defense of the bourgeoisie and their privileges as exploiters. All right, and this is where he starts to get into freedom of assembly in the press. freedom of assembly can be taken as a sample of the requisites of pure democracy. Every class-conscious worker who has not broken with his class will readily appreciate the absurdity of promising freedom of assembly to the exploiters at a time and in a situation when the exploiters are resisting the overthrow of their rule and fighting to retain their privileges. Now, it's very important to understand, in this time period, in the 1910s and 20s, there were these, they exist today, but in this time, these coalitions of capitalists were very important. And they were vital to Mussolini and Hitler taking power. I have a video that's going to launch as soon as YouTube clears the content restrictions that they've placed on this video. It's finished. The Parenti video is done. It's uploaded, and I will publish it as soon as YouTube clears some content restrictions, which are bogus and will, I'm sure, I trust will get taken off. But once that goes live, you'll see. I point out, I show exactly who the people were, the individual the individual capitalists who were supporting the fascists were, and they were all parts of these giant conglomerates of industry, the conglomerates of agriculture, the national banking conglomerates. The capitalist class has class consciousness, and they have a lot of cohesion. Okay, so that's what Lenin's talking about here. He's talking about how capitalists come together and build these cooperatives of capitalists, which exist to push the capitalist agenda. Okay. That's something we shouldn't want, okay? As workers, as communists, we should not want capitalists to have the freedom and the right to assemble in this manner, okay? Mm-hmm. We want to smash their cohesion and smash their organizations and gut them through whatever means we can. When the bourgeoisie were revolutionary, they did not, neither in England in 1649 nor in France in 1793, grant freedom of assembly to the monarchists and the nobles who summoned foreign troops and assembled to organize attempts at restoration. If the present-day bourgeoisie, who have long since become reactionary, demand from proletariat advanced guarantees of freedom of assembly for the exploiters, whatever the resistance offered by the capitalists of being expropriated, the workers will only laugh at their hypocrisy. And this, look, this might ruffle some feathers, but this is where it's like there are people who call themselves socialists and get all pissed off whenever a fascist gets kicked out of Vietnam, which happens all the time. Somebody who works for like Viet Dinh or something like that, one of these Vietnamese fascist organizations, gets kicked out of Vietnam. Yeah. And
they panic.
They're like crying these crocodile tears about these fascists that are getting that don't have freedom of speech in Vietnam. And I'm like, why are you so upset and worried? Like, we want to deplatform fascists back home in the USA.
Yeah,
that's all we want.
You remind me of that horrible memories. Yes. Like when Vietnam kicked out, the really horrible fascist, she is the leader of the Freedom Convoy of Vietnam, that she wrote, the instruction handbook for Freedom Convoy protester, that she caused several deaths because she called for protest from the truckers in the 17 and 18. And she might be the first one for right-wingers to test out the Freedom Convoy protest kind of thing. Yeah. And several innocent people died of her because they blocked the road and the ambulance cannot go through down the ambulance. And because of that, she got to jail, and and then a bunch of people, leftists, they panic when they heard the news, oh, Luna, why Vietnam authoritarian, ban her? It's like, what the fuck are you so you're on her side now, literally the Freedom Convoy leader of Vietnam?
We do not advocate for the freedom of speech of fascists.
No.
We do not want fascists and people who want capitalist bourgeois overthrow of communism. We do not advocate for their speech. We just don't. I'm sorry if that hurts your feelings. I'm sorry if that conflicts with your sensibilities because you've been brainwashed for your entire life, like I was until relatively recently, to think to believe in this notion of absolute free speech. But I'm sorry, no, fascists should not have freedom of speech.
Exactly. We are not freedom of speech absolutists. There should be no freedom of speech for fascists. End of story.
And some people get so confused because they want to go out in the streets and they want to confront fascists in the streets, but then they don't want to confront fascists when it comes to because it's been so really kind of religiousized. It's like a religious thing.
Yeah.
Freedom of speech is worshipped in the USA, especially, and to such extent that it's there are people, and I know people like this, who want to go out and fight fascists in the streets to like stop them from demonstrating in the streets. But then if like somebody deplatforms a fascist from speaking like on the internet or something like that, they get all pissed off. They're like, oh, you got to have freedom of speech. And it's like, no, we want to confront and silence and smash fascism everywhere that it exists and root it out and put a stop to it, period. Full stop. They want to do that to us. Believe me. Believe me. And they do. They do. They silence us every chance they get. Do you ever see real communists, ever? Do you ever see real communists on like corporate news? Unless they find some angle where they can like make fun of us or dehumanize us or something like that. You're never going to. Yeah, we got 15 minutes, so we're coming close to wrapping up here. No, I mean, so let's go back to the article. We don't want capitalists and fascists to be able to assemble. Okay, that's the TLDR. The workers know perfectly well too that even in the most democratic bourgeois republic, freedom of assembly is a hollow phrase. This is exactly what we were just talking about. For the rich have the best public and private buildings at their disposal, and enough leisure to assemble at meetings which are protected by the bourgeois machine of power. The rural and urban workers and small peasants, the overwhelming majority of the population, are denied all these things. As long as that state of affairs prevails, equality, i.e. pure democracy, is a fraud. So he's not saying, by the way, that we'll never, ever, ever have pure democracy. He's saying that we can't build pure democracy under capitalism. That's the point.
Yes.
Okay? The point of communism is to build a society in which we can build a true general democracy and general freedom. But before we could do that, we have to eradicate the ruling class so that there is no ruling class. We have to abolish capitalism and make the capitalists equal with the workers. And the only way to do that is to seize the means of production, okay? So the first thing to do to win general equity, that's exactly what he's saying right now. This is the formula. If you want real, true democracy, the first thing to do to win genuine equality and enable the working people to enjoy democracy in practice is to deprive the exploiters of all the public and sumptuous private buildings, to give to the working people leisure, and to see to it that their freedom of assembly is protected by armed workers, not by heirs of the nobility or capitalist officers in command of downtrodden soldiers. Only when that change is effected can we speak of freedom of assembly and of equality without mocking at the workers, at working people in general, at the poor. And this change can be effected only by the vanguard of the working people, the proletariat, which overthrows the exploiters, the bourgeoisie. We have to overthrow the bourgeoisie before we can have anything approaching a real, true democracy. It's quite simple. Now, some people want to pretend that we already live in a world where everyone's equal. And some people want to pretend that we already have a framework which would allow us to have all this like freedom of speech and all this shit. We just don't.
No, we
In the USA, I'm talking about, and in the West.
Absolutely, you don't.
Now the fucking
Just a extreme element.
yeah, I've got it here. Yeah. So okay. The freedom of the press. Well, this is probably the last one I read. Freedom of the press is another of the principal slogans of pure democracy, and here too the workers know, and socialists everywhere have explained millions of times that this freedom is a deception because the best printing presses and the biggest stocks of paper are appropriated by the capitalists. It's funny that he talks about stocks of paper because like that was the important thing back then in the era of the printing press. Today you could think of it as data servers, right? Like machines and computers and that sort of thing. They're appropriated by the capitalists. And while capitalists rule over the press remains, a rule that is manifested throughout the whole world, all the more strikingly, sharply, and cynically, the more democracy and the Republican system are developed, as in America, for example. The first thing to do to win real equality and genuine democracy for the working people, for the workers and peasants, is to deprive capital of the possibility of hiring writers, buying publishing houses, and bribing newspapers, or owning newspapers, I would add. And to that, the capitalists and exploiters have to be overthrown and their resistance oppressed. The capitalists have always used the term freedom to mean freedom for the rich to get richer and for the workers to starve to death. And capitalist usage, freedom of the press means freedom of the rich to bribe the press, freedom to use their wealth to shape and fabricate so-called public opinion. In this respect, too, the defenders of pure democracy prove to be defenders of an utterly foul and venal system that gives the rich control over the mass media. They prove to be deceivers of the people with the aid of plausible, fine-sounding, but thoroughly false phrases, divert them from the concrete historical task of liberating the press from capitalist enslavement. Genuine freedom and equality will be embodied in the system which the communists are building, and which there will be no opportunity for massing wealth at the expense of others. No objective opportunities for putting the press under the direct or indirect power of money, and no impediments in the way of any working man or groups of working men in any numbers for enjoying and practicing equal rights in the use of public printing presses and public stocks of paper. And if you just change the word paper to data servers, this holds up completely today.
Yeah.
100%
100
still
years
holds.
later, and Lenin's still right.
Now, here's another point I want to make, okay? There's a book called Ethics in Progress. And it's a book about basically like ethics from a dialectical materialist perspective. And one of the points that he makes is that Howard Selson, I believe, is the author. One of the points that he makes is that it is actually dangerous to pretend that we live already in the world that we want to build.
Yeah.
And this is where really you have to not be an idealist when it comes to your ethics. Of course, I want to live in a world where freedom of speech really is a thing.
Yeah.
And where people really do have a right to speech.
Yeah.
But the rights-based framework cannot be built under capitalism.
No,
cannot exist under
Not-
capitalism.
Yeah.
I don't even think it can be really truly built until capitalism is completely extinguished.
Exactly.
It's
Impossible.
a project of future generations, probably.
Yes.
At this point, what we have to do is look at our actual material conditions that we have right now. We have to look at the world that we live in right now and think, how do we free ourselves from this exploitation? How do we free ourselves from this system, which not just enables, but constructs things like white supremacism and ableism and transphobia and all these other forms of oppression? How do we free ourselves from those forms of oppression? First of all, by building power for ourselves. Second of all, by connecting all these movements together. And the only way to do that is through an organized international working class revolutionary framework. So yes, I say as a non-binary person, trans rights are important, but we cannot have trans rights under capitalism. All we could do is build trans power. This goes for the whole LGBTQ plus movement, gay power.
Yeah.
All we could do is build power for disabled people. And then through building these movements, right, organize together into a cohesive working class movement that's not only accepts, not only embraces, but empowers these communities as an organized working class. So,
I mean, the same thing as I want to share is that like when Vietnam was actively fighting against colonialism imposed on us like nearly 100 years by the French, we want to be free. We wanted to have an equality, and we want our students, our people to have education and healthcare and food and clothes. But we knew that we would not have those things under colonialism. That was why the first thing that we did is to call for an end for colonialism, because we knew that there's not gonna be any equality or education of Vietnamese people under colonialism. And that is why the same thing here right now, that you won't have an equality, you won't have a true freedom of speech, you will not have a true democracy under capitalism. Especially with fascism is rising too. That is why we need to call to end fascism and to end capitalism, and then we can truly move towards to have a pure democracy. And Vietnam is still on the way of building a socialist democracy. I made a whole point when in my series about democratic centralism. We are still just a baby step because capitalism still exists. There's still a threat out there against Vietnam.
well, yeah, you just had a massive crackdown on corruption where how many people was it? Like
54.
54 high-ranking Communist Party members and capitalists and officials were all in one trial all together because they all got caught committing massive, huge, disgusting acts of fraud. That's undeniable, right? I mean, nobody's trying to deny that.
Yeah.
The fraud involved like people literally bribing to take flights back to Vietnam during COVID, during the lockdowns, right?
Yeah.
I mean, really disgusting stuff. Like, how disgusting do you have to be, and how much of a traitor to the working class do you have to be
Yeah, how disgusting
to be a Communist
and
Party
evil.
official and take bribes
Yeah.
related to like the COVID
Take
lockdown?
the opportunity of a national disaster
Yeah.
that people are suffering and they pay whatever they have left to just go back to the country so they can stay alive.
Yeah.
And they took that as a chance to put money in their pocket. Like, how evil you must be. I am speechless whenever I think about that.
Yeah. So, and the point, I mean, fortunately, they got caught and, they're being dealt with. But like, the point is that as long as capitalism exists, there will be, Lenin talked about it in this piece. And I think you'd have to be a fool to think that you could possibly have any kind of working class organization, whether it's your workers union or LGBTQ plus movement organization or anything like that, that doesn't get invaded by terrible people and class traitors and enemy agents and that sort of thing. It's warfare. I mean, it's information warfare when it comes to like misinformation and combating lies and hold on, sorry, we got a super chat. Where did it go? Am I wrong?
No, I didn't see that.
Oh, I'm wrong. Sorry. Okay. Wishful thinking, as Grant said. I think, okay, we got about 4 minutes left. Why don't we pull in the slop deucer?
Yeah, right.
Why don't we bring the slop deucer on? Or not? Nah, you're joining us. Hello.
Oh, hey, how's it going?
I'm doing great.
I'm just sitting here
fantastic.
sweating real good.
You happy? You happy to be sweating?
Yeah, it's good. It's cooling me off. How about y'all? Are you sweating still?
Yeah, I'm real hot and real uncomfortable and miserable. I can't wait for the next 3 minutes to go by. No, how do you feel? I know you had a little snafu with the internet earlier on, but you've been doing a great job the last hour or so.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
I've
thanks.
been very pleased.
Thanks. I don't know what was going on. I think we had a storm come by. I think maybe my internet was just doing a poor job here in Studio C.
Studio C, Studio Charlie.
Yeah.
Well. How does everybody feel? Tell us in the chat. What do you think about this new setup? What do you think about the 3-camera setup? Is it distracting or do you like it? I like it. I think it's cool. But I'm curious what the audience. We want to know what you think.
Yeah.
Does it look good? Does it feel good? Okay. Kai says it's cool. It's lovely.
David said it's lovely. Yeah.
How do you feel?
Looks
Do you
good.
feel good, Grant? Are you having fun?
I feel pretty good. I got this oscillating fan that is giving me a little bit of breeze every now and then, but it's very muggy. But I like the way the setup is looking so far. Y'all did a great job in that studio. Is that what you were asking me?
I don't
I'm
know.
also a
I
little
forgot.
hungry.
You rambled so long, I forgot what I asked you.
So long. Whole entire 3 seconds.
Yeah.
I want to tell everybody, though, that Grant's position, don't feel too sorry for Grant, because I have been telling Grant since the summer of 2022, I believe, that he needs to install an air conditioner in that
Yeah,
workshop.
that's true.
of yours.
That is true.
You can have
I literally
a mobile one,
I was at your house and offered to help you fix it, and you didn't prioritize that. So really, you are hoist upon your own petard.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking at it right now. I can see it, but there's a lot more work that has to be done before I put up a green screen behind me and pretend that the shop is fixed. So
I mean, the shop looks good. I'm just saying.
thanks.
I hate to see you sweating and turning.
I don't think an air
are you
conditioning is going to
sunburned?
actually.
Did you get sunburned in
No.
your shop?
No, it's the. I think it's just the white balance on this camera,
Okay.
and also all of the.
Lazy Anarchist says Grant always seems miserable on screen.
Yeah.
Someone's trying to get AC.
Next time I go to your house, Grant, whether you
Wow.
like it or not, I'm putting an AC in there if you don't have it done.
At least
already.
a window You kind of think of something, you know?
Yeah, no, I think I'm gonna put one behind me here.
Window.
I've
Yeah.
got this window behind me. I think I'm gonna put one.
Yeah,
there.
right in front of your
So it can blow
microphone.
right
That's
on
a
my
great-
right into the microphone, right in the back
Yeah.
of my head.
Just blast
So-
it right into the.
Yeah. And I mean, it is
Uh,
insulated in here, but it's just it's just so hot here. It doesn't even.
You just
matter
need an air
anymore.
conditioner. You live in a swamp place.
Yeah, we live in the swamp land. I have some.
So you need an air conditioner.
I have these fans that I was. Oh, good, a moth just got in here. We we got these solar powered fans that I was going to use as exhaust to exhaust heat from.
Coulda,
also.
woulda, shoulda. Coulda, woulda, shoulda. Well,
Yeah.
we'll get you set up. We'll get you put it. We'll figure it out.
That's good. I just
somehow
need
or
some.
other.
Yeah, I just need to bring a bucket of ice out here next time.
But something about, I mean, just to try to end on a positive note here. You do have, like, I don't know, your sweaty energy is kind of. I mean, it's
very
definitely-
sloppy.
It's
very
part of my
sloppy.
character.
It's on brand.
part of my character.
It's on brand.
Yeah.
Sloppy.
And I think you look fantastic.
Thanks.
You look like you've been smoking a bunch of cigarettes and producing a show for 2 hours. I know you don't smoke cigarettes, but that's
No.
you give me that energy. It's like an
That
archetype.
was what I was going for. I mean, this shirt is short sleeved underneath this, so
Grant is not in Vietnam.
yeah.
We keep trying
Yeah,
to.
yeah.
We've been trying to convince Grant. I've been trying to convince Grant to come to Vietnam for 10 years, but Grant seems to prefer sweating in a tiny shed.
yeah, I like it. It's pretty good.
But you look good. I'm happy.
This is an advice
Glowing.
coming from a Vietnamese person. You need to put some ice in front of the fan. Yeah, it would cool you down a lot. Glowing.
Yeah, thank you. That's me.
Okay. I have a question. There's a question somebody asked, and it's too big of a question to really answer because we really have no time. We're overtime.
Oh.
But I will use this to pitch Luna's stream, which is going to be in 2 days, Mooncast. So Lazy Anarchist said, is Vietnam getting more capitalist as the years go by? Luna can talk about this. If you come and watch Mooncast and ask this question on Mooncast, Luna can talk about this in depth.
Yes.
Do you want to give a little teaser? Just 2 or 3 sentences of a teaser response before we end the show?
The official name of our economy right now is called the socialist-oriented market economy. It is an economy that has market that is oriented by socialism. Means that we have a regulation to try to run an economy.
Sorry, I thought that comment was kind of funny. Capitalism is a slider, of course. It goes up and down. No, I think we get the essence of the question, though. Continue, Luna.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
continue. Yes, so like it's a socialist-oriented market economy where like we try to have a socialist regulation in this capitalist existing world. But funny enough, the West, the media outlets, the capitalist media outlets usually just equate, socialist market economy. Oh, it's market economy, so it means it's a free market. So that is why, it's the attacks coming from the
And Luna will talk about all that and more
yes.
in much more depth
yes.
on Mooncast, which is Tuesday night at what time
Tuesday
are you doing
night,
it
it's
now?
like 10 p.m. Eastern time.
10 p.m. Eastern United States time. So if you want to hear more about that, be sure to subscribe to youtube.com/LunaOy live, where all of Luna's live streams go. You can also watch Luna's got a bunch of bunch of great videos over at youtube.com/LunaOy. By the way, I'm trying not to swear as much. We need a swear jar or something. The reason being, YouTube is like definitely algorithmically punishing people more for swearing. So I don't like talk about freedom of speech. This is a great way to end it. We don't have freedom of speech because if I swear too much now, we're going to get even more punishment from the algorithm, and we're already pretty heavily stigmatized and oppressed, yes, by the algorithm. So Luna, I guess next week we'll have a swear jar.
Yeah, right here.
But yeah, for now, that's basically it. Slop, you got any closing comments? Last word?
I got nothing. Y'all are doing great.
All right. I think Grant wants to go and take a shower and go to bed. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for bearing through the technical issues we had. I hope next week it'll be even more ironed out. But it's gonna be a few weeks before we really hit a stride with this new setup. But Yeah, that's all I got for now. I'm EJ.
I'm Luna.
We will see you Tuesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern on Luna's Mooncast.
Yes.
Until then, stay safe. Solidarity. See you next
Bye.
time. Bye-bye.